Thanks for joining us on the John Mendola Show. We are driven by McCarthy Tire and Automotive Centers. Well, joining us right now is former WBRE sports reporter Sid Michaels and, unfortunately, Jim Miller, a guy who did so much for Northeastern Pennsylvania for a couple of decades, has passed away. Sid, there's been a great outpouring on social media talking about the great fond memories of the late Jim Miller.
I'll tell you, I could go on for hours, John. We worked together 18 years, Jim and I, every day. We were back to back at our desks typing. We were on the road together. And believe it or not once in 18 years did we have a fight. I mean, we got along every day. We came in, I like to kid around. We started our day between 2 and 2:30 every afternoon. And Jim used to say we were the only department in the world that started with the coffee break, because we'd walk from our Franklin Street studio over to Public Square because Jim would get his newspapers, and we'd go to the coffee shop and grab a coffee and come back and then start our day. But Jim did it right. His favorite saying was, "We do it for the kids," and that's what his whole career in the Scranton Wilkes-Barre market was about. It was for the kids, the high school athletes, the college athletes of the area, and again, his philosophy was that, especially with ESPN now growing, people had another place to go for their national sports. So Jim's philosophy was, we are going to do it by getting to the high schools, getting to the local colleges, going to as many as we can, because each one of those athletes has family members, they have friends, they have classmates, and they have alumni of those schools which were watching to see those athletes in those schools covered. So that's how that's what Jim's philosophy was, and I was fortunate to go along for the ride.
And Jim Miller touched so many lives, and whenever he walked into a game, as the years went on, people be chanting Jim Miller, Jim Miller, and I think there was a promo, a slogan of Jim Miller is everywhere at one time.
Mm-hmm. And that was it, John. Jim may have been the first one that was out every single night. At that time, when we first started, there was only a 6 o'clock and an 11 o'clock sportscast or newscast. So as the instant we came in, Jim would get his scripts typed, and then he would be out covering a story. Come back to the 6 o'clock news, we'd be out on the road again right after that. So Jim was at the events. Jim was somebody that people could come up with. They could shake his hand. They could talk to him. They could joke around with him. Jim, he wasn't adverse to climbing up in the stands and sitting with the kids, the student body cheering sections. And again, I was so fortunate to learn from him, because he was out among the people, and that's what his accessibility made him, and then the fact that he was coming into everyone's living room every night made him a real person, made him not the TV guy, but made him Jim Miller, the guy that was at our game every night, or the guy that was at our event at our school. And that's what made him so popular.
Sid, you and I have had a lot of jobs during the course of our career, and whether it's in the private sector, the public sector, at no time can you get along with somebody for 2 decades like you did Jim Miller. You said that positive energy and the no fighting thing. I mean, that's just extremely rare, and I'm sure as you look back, you're saying, man, that was a special time in my life.
John, we laughed our way through 18 years together. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, we had a great time together. And I tell my kids that if you can go through your entire professional career and enjoy your work, now again, you're going to have a bad day here and there, but if you can enjoy your work, your entire professional career, then thank the good Lord, because not many people can say that. And I can definitely say I've enjoyed everything I've done in my professional career, but particularly those 18 years with Jim. We had, but we were friends, and the fact that we were friends, we helped each other out. We knew if I needed Jim to cover something on a day off, he was there, and if Jim needed me for something, I was there. So it was a camaraderie that I don't know if you would. I don't know in this day of everybody trying to, or a lot of professional people trying to advance. I don't know if you see that too often anymore.
Yeah, everybody trying to one up somebody else,
Sure.
and you guys were kind of that 1A combo. Jim didn't really look at it. Hey, I'm the main guy here. He always would give you credit, and you guys really just you worked so well together that it was almost that team effort. And I think that's what teamwork always came about, and that was kind of the whole theme, I think, of what Jim was about in teamwork when he was an athlete, and then of course as a professional.
You're right, John, and that's what I was telling someone earlier. I was very fortunate to come. I was the rookie and the TV novice. Jim was the TV veteran, but he had the confidence in me to let me come in every day and tell him what I was going to do, what I thought we should cover, and again, he had that faith in me that it was the thing that was going to enhance his presentation. And another thing about Jim that I learned was he knew and he taught me that the star of your sportscast was not you, not the sportscaster, but the athlete, the event. That you were just the vehicle to take those highlights and those results to the people. So they were the star of the show, and that's the one thing that Jim recognized, and that's the one thing that he taught me was you were only there. You were there to report. You weren't there to be the main focus. The kids were, the athletes were, not you.
Yeah, so many great lessons from Jim Miller. Had the good fortune of working with both you guys for about a year on a part-time basis, just doing some stuff. But how about the work ethic? I mean, the trips to Pittsburgh every weekend for the Steelers, and 7 days a week. It didn't matter. You guys can work 36 days in a row, and you might get a day off, but that's what it was all about. I mean, you did it kind of because you loved it, but at the same time, you knew that the audience wanted more.
Yep. And there were so many stories I could tell you, John. The quickest one that comes to mind is the night before the NFL draft. We get a call in the station, in the studio. You better get up to Toronto because Rocket Ismail is signing with the Argonauts tomorrow afternoon. Big press conference. It was like $16 or $17 million, unheard of contract at the time. All of a sudden, I'm running home to get a sport coat and a shirt and a tie. Jim's running home to pack his bags. He's driving up to Toronto, and I'm jumping in the seat for the 11 o'clock show. Things like that. And wanting to, obviously, every business is a bottom line business looking to toe the line on cost. So I don't know how many times we get in the car and drive somewhere because we knew it had to be covered. Driving, again, I go back to Rocket, driving to Notre Dame to cover the Rocket, driving out to Cleveland to cover Bob Sura, driving to Florida if there was a bowl game or to cover the Daytona 500. But we enjoyed it. We got in the car, as Jim would say, we grab a bag of chips and a bottle of soda or a cup of coffee, and we hit the road, and we laughed for the 5, 10, or 12 or 15 hours that we were in the car. But we knew it had to be done, we did it.
You guys are grinders, man. I remember those Florida trips and things, the sacrifices that you guys used to make. Just saying, you're really going to Florida? Yeah, we're going to Florida. We got to go cover the bowl game and stuff like that.
The greatest tribute, one of the greatest tributes was about 2 summers ago. I was up at PNC Field for a baseball game, just with my wife. I was walking out to right field by the bleachers, and there were 2 guys standing, having a drink, watching the game in right field. And they recognized me and said, "Hey, Sid, come on over." They said, "We used to love you guys, you and Jim Miller." They played at Bishop Hoban. They said, "We would get home from a football game and hardly wait to turn the TV on," they said, "because we knew that even though we didn't have a great football team, we'd be 0-10, but we knew that you guys would come and cover us. We knew that you'd be there." And that's what was the greatest tribute to Jim, was that the slogan was, "Hey, Jim Miller is everywhere. He was everywhere. He taught me how to be everywhere. And the relationships we made, the friendships we made, not only with our professional counterparts, but just with the people out there, just with the kids, watching them grow up from freshmen, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and now to see those kids with their own kids in high school playing sports. Those are the greatest things, the greatest tributes that you could get, and made my career with Jim so special.
And you bring up so many great points. I mean, we all look back as we become parents, or we become involved in our professional careers, and say, man, I remember back in 83 or 92 or 75 for that matter, about this athlete. But now we're starting to think a little bit about reflecting back to great broadcasters and guys like Jim Miller and Sid Michaels, the great guys that really affected a lot of people here in Northeastern Pennsylvania, including myself in my own professional career. Very grateful to get to watch you guys, learn from you guys, and again, be able to interact with people, whether it's down at Mount Carmel, or you meet somebody at a different school in Montrose or somewhere like that. Those relationships, they go a long way when you get to see them. Maybe it's down at Martz Hall. You see those same guys every year. It's a lot of fun and a great tradition.
Well, John, you're a perfect example. We covered you playing on the football field, and then you're working with us, and so you're a perfect example. But even until Jim came, and until the Baltimores made the commitment and hired Jim and then myself, of course they had some good solid people, Kevin Lynn and who could ever forget Jerry Baum and some of the stuff. But until they hired Jim and myself as a team, that I think was what really made this a competitive TV market, because then the Joe Zones of the world, the Tim Carlsons, the Kent Westlings, we all knew that we had to be at our best every night, because the level of coverage, the level of the sportscasters, the main sportscasters, and I say main, sticking with those guys that were on the weekend, or on the weekdays rather, you knew you had to be at the top of your game, because even though we didn't sit there watching each other, we knew that if there was an event going on, we had to be there because the other guys were going to. And I think that made us all better. And another thing about that, John, is on the field of battle, so to speak, we were competitive, but we were in this together too. So we were best of friends, even though we were competing against each other. And you know that from knowing those guys. Absolutely.
Great competition. One thing, thinking about Jim Miller, was he really loved and adored his family, and really tried to spend as much time with them as he could. And that was the great stuff.
He did. And, even right up to the end, the family was with him. And of course, his wife, Judy, I mean, she gave up so much for him, following him around. And that maybe people don't know. And maybe she wouldn't want me saying this, but when he retired, that Jim said, listen, she followed me around. Now we'll go back to where Judy's family is, and we'll give her a chance to be home with her family. So that's how much he loved his family. They meant the world to him. He was fortunate enough to be able to coach his son in high school baseball while he was still healthy, and that's what I think he wanted. And there's so many other things people don't know about Jim, about growing up when he was a kid, him and his brother writing a letter to the great heavyweight champion Floyd Patterson. Patterson wrote back to them, invited them to training camp. They ended up sitting ringside at the Ingemar Johansson championship fight. And then eventually they became such great friends that Floyd Patterson was the godfather of Jim's first son. People don't know things like that. Stories playing with Pete Rose, a lot of people know that. Willie Stargell, a lot of things. He had a great life. He had a great career. He really did. And I feel privileged to have been able to work with him and watch him and pattern myself in some ways after him.
He used to talk about those workouts he used to do with the swinging the bat, man. They were unbelievable.
He used to go in the backyard. He'd go home either before he came in or on a weekend. I don't know, 600 or 1,000 or 1,500 times he would swing the bat in the yard. he loved the sport of baseball, and even and I think it was the greatest thing when the Red Barons came here, because John, knowing that he was a professional ball player, the respect that those guys had for him. And I forget who the pitcher was one time, but we were on the field before a game. We were getting ready for a live shot, and we're just standing around by the dugout. And one of the pitchers, who had just come off rehab, came over and leaned against the railing of the dugout and was talking to Jim about his recovery and asking Jim advice on throwing. And the guy walked away. I forget who the pitcher was, but I laughed. I said, I can't believe that there's one of the Red Barons asking you for advice on pitching. But we laughed. We laughed through it, but they had respect for him because they knew he played the game. And he didn't have to play at the major league level. He only played at the minor league level, but they still had a respect for him because he was one of them. And I think that's why he loved it so much, because it took him back to his playing days.
Yeah, he relaxed a little bit with some fishing. I know in his later years, he really enjoyed fishing for bass, and that was one of the fun times that I had, out with him out on a lake and just watching him enjoy himself catch some bass. I think I caught one. He caught about 10 that day.
Fishing and skiing was another thing. He did a series on the air one time about skiing as a promotion, and he fell in love with it. And even it was a story that nobody knows, or very, very few people know. The only day off of the year I ever wanted to have was Christmas Eve, so I can go to midnight mass and have Christmas Eve meal with my family. Any other day I didn't care. I would work. Well, I think it was like December 20th or December 21st. What happens? Jim goes out and breaks his collarbone skiing. So he calls to tell me, and the first thing I say to him is, well, I feel bad for you, but you better be here on the 24th. Because, and he was there. He worked on the 24th, but that was him. And again, we were there for each other. And that was and we never gave it a second thought, because we were such great friends and he was such a great person.
Those memories and thinking about what he's thinking about right now, wherever he is that hey, he's having a laugh at us right now, just saying, hey, I can't believe you guys are talking about me. Just go relax, do something else. He wants us to just kind of enjoy our families and do that, but I think he touched so many families. It's a great opportunity for us to reflect on some of the great stories of Jim Miller.
And I could write a book about them, John. I could, and so could he. And that was one thing he was trying to do when he got sick. He was trying to write a book about his life. And I don't know how far he got, because I didn't get a chance to talk to his wife about it. And I will ask her someday, but it would be because he lived a full life. If anybody did, Jim did. He experienced everything. And I mean, from the personalities that he met to the things that he did to the things that he accomplished, he did. He lived a full life. He really did.
And of course, I'm sure people are sharing their stories right now, as we said, on social media. But it was great to catch up with you and share some of those personal stories, Sid, that you had of him, and of course, reflecting on a great life from the late Jim Miller. Thank you so much for your time.
John, thank you. It was an honor, and I really appreciate you giving me the chance to talk about my great friend and somebody who will be greatly missed.
Sid Michaels with us again. Jim Miller, unfortunately, has passed, and his memories, though, will live on forever here in Northeastern Pennsylvania. On the John Mendola Show, we are driven by McCarthy Tire and Automotive Centers.